Naomi was a beautiful young lady with a kind heart. She lived in a small room with her best friend, Glory. Life was not easy for them. Naomi didn't have a good job and sometimes went to bed without food, but she never gave up. She always said, "One day, my story will change." One bright morning, Naomi woke up early and smiled. She had an interview at a hotel. Glory hugged her and prayed for her. "Go and shine, Naomi. I know you'll get this job," she said. Naomi wore her best clothes and went to the hotel. After many questions, she was told, "Congratulations, you got the job." Naomi screamed with joy after so many months of struggle and disappointment. She hugged Glory when she got home. That night, Glory was so happy for Naomi that she decided they should go out to celebrate. "Let's go to the club tonight," she said, "just for fun." Naomi didn't want to go at first, but Glory begged, "Just one night. You deserve it." Naomi agreed. They dressed up and went to a popular club in the city. Loud music, dancing lights, and people laughing filled the air. It was like another world. That same night, in another part of the city, Richard, a 33-year-old millionaire, sat alone in his car with tears in his eyes. He was a successful businessman, rich, respected, and handsome, but his heart was broken. He had just been betrayed by his business partner, who had stolen company money and run away, leaving Richard to face the damage. Richard felt lost. He drove to a club and started drinking heavily, hoping to forget the pain. His men later helped him upstairs to his private room in the hotel above the club. He could barely walk. His eyes were red, and his thoughts were heavy. Back at the club, Naomi wore a simple black dress. She looked natural and lovely, but soon her body started feeling weak. She had taken a strong drug earlier for her headache, and now it was making her sleepy. She touched Glory's hand and said, "I need to lie down. I feel dizzy." She walked upstairs quietly, searching for a resting place. She saw a hotel room door half open. It was quiet and dark inside. Naomi walked in slowly, lay on the bed, and closed her eyes. Sleep took her quickly. She didn't know it was Richard's room. A few minutes later, Richard walked into his room. His eyes were tired, and his steps were slow. In his drunken state, when he saw Naomi on the bed, he thought she was someone his friend had arranged to comfort him. He didn't say anything. Naomi didn't move. That night, in confusion, pain, and weakness, they became intimate. The next morning, Naomi woke up slowly. Her head was still spinning. She sat up and looked around. The room was quiet. The man she had slept with was gone. She touched her body and quickly stood up, shocked and confused. Her eyes fell on a beautiful gold necklace lying beside the pillow. She picked it up and held it close. It looked expensive and had a name on it, R. Hamilton. She didn't know who the man was, but something inside her told her to keep the necklace safe. On the table, she also saw some money. Tears filled her eyes. "What happened to me last night?" Naomi whispered. She quickly dressed and ran home. Glory was already worried. "Naomi, where have you been?" "What happened?" she asked. Naomi didn't speak. She only hugged Glory and cried. 1 month later, Naomi started feeling weak. She couldn't eat much, and her body felt strange. Glory noticed. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I don't know," Naomi said with fear in her eyes. She went to a nearby clinic. After running tests, the nurse came back smiling gently. "Congratulations, you are 1 month pregnant." Naomi froze. "What?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Yes, you are pregnant," the nurse said again. Naomi covered her mouth with her hands. Tears rolled down her face. She walked home slowly. When she got inside, she sat on the floor and cried like a baby. Her whole body shook with fear. I'm pregnant. I'm going to have a baby, she whispered over and over. But how will I take care of this child? I don't even know who the father is. I don't even know his name. I didn't see his face. She placed her hand on her flat stomach and looked up at the old ceiling. God, why me? She cried. I don't have money. I don't have parents. Just this small job I just started. Why now? Why like this? The door opened gently. It was Glory. She had bought bread and beans from a nearby shop, but when she saw Naomi crying like that, she dropped the food. Naomi, what's wrong? You're scaring me, she said, rushing to her. Naomi looked at her, tears still rolling down. I'm pregnant, Glory. I'm pregnant, she said, her voice weak like a whisper. Glory's eyes widened. What? Wait, how? Naomi explained everything slowly. The celebration, the club, the sleep, waking up in a strange room, the gold necklace, and the money she found. She opened a bag and brought out the necklace and the money. Glory stared at it. It was gold, shiny, and had the letters, R. Hamilton, on it. Glory was quiet for a long time. Then she held Naomi's hand. Listen, we need to go back to that club, Glory said softly. Someone must know something. Maybe the workers. Maybe someone saw something that night. Naomi looked unsure. Do you think they'll remember? It's been 1 month already. We can try, Glory said firmly. We won't sit here doing nothing. The next day, Naomi and Glory went back to the same club. The music was not as loud during the day. The lights were off. Only cleaners and a few staff were around. They walked up to the manager. Good afternoon, sir, Glory said politely. Please, we need your help. The manager raised his eyes. What do you want? My friend was here one night about a month ago, Glory explained. She drank something and became very weak. She ended up in a hotel room that night, and something happened. She woke up alone the next morning and doesn't remember who the man was. The manager frowned. We see a lot of people every night. We can't remember one person. Glory brought out the necklace from Naomi's bag and showed it to him. Maybe this can help. He left this behind. Have you seen anyone wearing something like this? The manager looked at it closely, then shook his head. No, it looks expensive, but I've never seen it. Sorry. Naomi felt her heart sink. Another cleaner walked by. Glory stopped her. Please, do you remember a man who booked a hotel that night? He came in very late, maybe drunk. The woman scratched her head. Men come here. I can't say. Some go to the hotel after drinking, but I don't know their names. They asked 2 more staff, but no one had answers. Naomi and Glory walked out of the club slowly. Naomi looked down, her steps heavy. No one knows him, Naomi whispered. What do I do now? Glory held her hand. Don't give up, Naomi. We'll find another way. They walked quietly along the street. Naomi placed her hand gently on her stomach. I don't know your father, she said in her heart, but I promise to love you. I promise to protect you. I will raise this baby alone. I will try. I will do my best. This baby didn't ask to come. It's not the baby's fault. Glory felt tears in her eyes too. She hugged Naomi tightly. You're stronger than you think, she whispered. I'm here. We will walk through this together, no matter what. That night, Naomi couldn't sleep. She kept thinking. She imagined the baby growing in her belly. What would she say when the child asked, "Where is my father?" What would she do if people mocked her? But one thing she knew, she would never abandon her child. The next morning, she went to work at the hotel. She cleaned rooms, washed towels, and smiled at guests, even when her heart was heavy. Nobody knew what she was going through. Nobody could see the silent pain in her eyes. But Naomi kept going. Somewhere far in the city, in a large mansion, Richard stood in front of his tall mirror, adjusting his black suit and wristwatch. He looked sharp and handsome as always, ready for another day at work. But something felt missing. He looked around his room, then turned to his dressing table. His eyes scanned every corner, then stopped. His gold necklace, the one with his family name on it, was gone. He frowned. "Where is it?" he murmured to himself. He opened all his drawers, checked under the bed, and flipped the pillow. Nothing. Then he called out, "Mary." His maid, an elderly woman, rushed in. "Yes, sir. When you were cleaning my room yesterday, did you see one of my gold necklaces? The one with my family name on it?" Mary looked surprised. "Oh, no, sir. I didn't. I cleaned your dressing table, but I didn't see any necklace there." Richard sighed and rubbed his forehead. "I don't even remember the last time I wore that necklace." "Sir, if you want, I can search for the necklace again." "Maybe it fell somewhere," Mary offered. Richard waved his hand. "No, it's fine. You can go." Mary bowed her head. "All right, sir." She quietly left. Richard sat on the edge of his bed, still thinking. "That necklace, I've had it for years. How did I lose it?" He shrugged it off and headed out for work. He didn't know that necklace was now with someone else, someone he had met on a forgotten night. Back in Naomi's world, she was standing behind the hotel front desk, trying to keep her eyes open. Her eyes were red, and her head felt heavy. It was getting worse every day. Her body was weak. She would be working, then suddenly feel dizzy. She would be standing, then suddenly feel like sitting on the floor. She was now always tired, always sleepy. Even after sleeping all night, she still felt like closing her eyes the next morning. Sometimes, her stomach would turn like it was doing a dance. One afternoon, she went to clean one of the rooms but ended up sitting on the bed and dozing off. A guest came in and was shocked to see her sleeping. The guest went straight to the manager. Later that day, Naomi was called into the manager's office. He looked angry. "Naomi, what's going on with you?" he asked. I'm sorry, sir," Naomi stammered. "I've just been feeling." "You've been feeling sleepy, weak, dizzy," he said, finishing her sentence. "You've been careless and slow. Guests are complaining. Even your coworkers are saying the same thing." Tears welled up in Naomi's eyes. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I don't know what's wrong with you, Naomi, but this hotel cannot keep someone who's not fit to work," he said. Naomi froze. Her heart dropped. "You're fired," the manager said. "You can go." Outside the hotel, Naomi sat on a cement bench, crying her eyes out. She held a bag close to her chest and rocked back and forth like a child. "I just lost my job. I just lost the only hope I had," she whispered. Her body shook as she cried. She didn't know what to do or where to go. That evening, Naomi returned to her small room. As soon as she opened the door, Glory rushed to her. "Naomi, you didn't go to work. I've been worried." Naomi dropped to the floor, crying again. "I was fired," she whispered. Glory gasped. "What? Why? What happened?" Naomi explained everything, how she had been feeling dizzy, sleepy, and weak, and how it affected her work. Glory looked at her for a while. "Naomi, I think this pregnancy is getting harder." Naomi covered her face with her hands. "How will I survive now, Glory? No job, no money, and I'm pregnant. God, help me." Glory hugged her tightly, tears in her own eyes. "You're not alone. We will figure this out. Don't give up, Naomi. Please don't give up. Meanwhile, in his mansion, Richard stood on his balcony, looking at the sky. He had no idea that the girl crying on the floor, pregnant and helpless, carried his blood in her womb and his gold necklace in her drawer. 5 years later, Naomi was now 29 years old. She was no longer that scared young girl sitting on the floor crying. Life had not been easy, but she didn't give up. After losing her hotel job years ago, she later found another one in a small but busy restaurant across the city. The pay was small, but it helped her survive. She worked hard every day, serving customers, washing plates, and cleaning the floors. She never complained. She just wanted a better life for her daughter. Yes, her daughter. Little Vera was now 4 years old, a bright and beautiful girl. She had her mother's eyes, a sharp mind, and the sweetest smile. Naomi raised her alone without any help from a man. Glory, her best friend, was always there in the early days until she got married and moved away. Even though Naomi had no husband, she gave Vera all the love in the world. But some questions were hard to answer. One quiet evening, Naomi and Vera sat together in their small room. Vera was playing with her dolls quietly, but her face looked sad. Naomi noticed it. "My baby, what's wrong?" she asked softly. Vera looked up with teary eyes. "Mommy, where is my daddy?" Naomi's heart dropped. Vera continued, "My friends Jane and Myra, they always talk about their daddies. Jane said her daddy brings her chocolate biscuits. Myra said her daddy reads her bedtime stories, but I don't have any daddy." Naomi gently pulled her close. She didn't speak at first. Her hands shook slightly as she opened the top drawer of a small wooden cabinet beside her bed. She brought out a shiny gold necklace with the words, "R. Hamilton," carved on it. Naomi smiled sadly and wiped her tears. "Vera, this necklace belongs to your daddy," she said softly. Vera's eyes lit up. "Really?" Naomi nodded. "Yes, this is the only thing he left behind. I don't know his name or where he is, but this necklace reminds me of him, and now it will remind you too." Vera touched the necklace gently with her tiny fingers. "So this is my daddy's necklace?" she asked, her eyes big with wonder. "Yes, my baby," Naomi said, placing it around her small neck. "It's your daddy's necklace. Please don't let anyone touch it. This is the only memory we have of him." Vera smiled brightly. "Wow! I'll show my friends at school. I'll tell them I have a daddy too. I have his necklace." Naomi shook her head gently. "No, Vera. You can show it, but don't let anyone touch it. You must protect it." "I will, Mommy," Vera nodded happily. "I will always wear it. I won't miss my daddy again because I have his necklace now." Naomi hugged her tightly. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but this time it wasn't from pain. It was from love and the joy of seeing her daughter smile. Meanwhile, in a luxury mansion far away, Richard sat on the balcony with his father, Chief Hamilton. They were drinking tea and watching the sunset. "Son," his father began, "you're not getting any younger. You are 38 years old, Richard. When are you going to settle down and marry?" Richard chuckled. "Soon, Dad. I've been thinking about it." His father smiled. "Good. Tricia is a nice girl. I've met her family. I like her." "Yes, Dad. I'll get married to Tricia soon. She's beautiful, smart, and well-behaved," Richard said. But then he paused and stared into the sky with a thoughtful look. "But sometimes I feel like something is missing," he added quietly. His father looked at him. "Missing? Like what?" Richard shrugged. "I don't know. It's just this strange empty feeling inside me. I try to ignore it, but it always comes back." His father sighed deeply and placed his cup down. Maybe it's because of your late mom. You were very close to her, he said gently. Richard nodded slowly. Maybe. You know what, his father continued. You need to get married. That will help you feel complete. That emptiness will go away when you have your own family. Richard smiled faintly. I hope so, Dad. But deep in his heart, he didn't know that the missing piece of his life was a small girl named Vera, wearing his necklace with pride, calling it, my daddy's necklace. A beautiful black car slowly pulled into the driveway of a modern house with white walls and flower pots at the entrance. The driver's door opened, and a classy, well-dressed young woman stepped out in high heels. It was Tricia, Richard's girlfriend. She looked elegant in her fitted dress, her curly hair bouncing as she walked. She held a designer handbag and wore light makeup that made her look rich and polished. Tricia was highly educated, bold, and stylish. Everything about her screamed power and beauty. She walked up the stairs and pressed the doorbell. Cynthia, she called out cheerfully. The door opened. Cynthia, her best friend, hugged her tightly. Oh, Tricia, look at you. Come in. They walked into the living room, laughing. The place was neat and classy, just like Cynthia. She was also beautiful and full of confidence. As they sat down, Cynthia poured some juice into 2 glasses. So, tell me, Cynthia asked with a playful smile. How's your man, Richard? Tricia smiled shyly and took a sip. He's fine, she said. Working hard as usual. You know him. Cynthia raised her eyebrows. So, when is he going to propose? Tricia sighed deeply and looked down at her glass. He hasn't said anything, she replied. I don't know what he's waiting for. I love him so much, Cynthia, but I don't know if he has any plans to settle down. Cynthia sat up. What do you mean? You two always look happy together. You're always smiling, traveling, taking cute pictures. Tricia nodded slowly. Yes, we are happy. But sometimes he just becomes quiet, absent-minded, like he's thinking deeply. When I ask him what's wrong, he just smiles and says nothing. But I know something is bothering him. Cynthia looked at her carefully. Tricia, are you sure he's not thinking about another woman? Tricia's eyes widened slightly. That was my first thought too. I've been watching him closely. I'm monitoring his phone. I installed a tracker. He doesn't know. Cynthia gasped and covered her mouth in shock. You did what? Yes, Tricia said confidently. But I haven't seen him chatting or calling any other woman. Only his business partners and a few old friends. So, I don't think he's cheating. Cynthia smiled mischievously. You want him to propose, right? Tricia nodded quickly. Yes, I want him to marry me. I want to become Mrs. Hamilton. Cynthia giggled. Let me tell you the secret I used for this, my man. You see that ring on my finger? She lifted her left hand and showed off her engagement ring. Tricia leaned in. Tell me. Cynthia whispered like it was a big secret. I told him I was pregnant. Tricia's jaw dropped. What? But were you really pregnant? Cynthia shook her head, laughing. No, I wasn't. I just wanted him to take me seriously. 2 weeks later, he proposed. Tricia was speechless. But what if he finds out you're not pregnant? Cynthia rolled her eyes. When he asked me later, I told him I lost the pregnancy. And that was the end. He even felt sorry for me. By then, we were already engaged. Men are like that. Tricia was quiet for a while. Do you think I should do the same with Richard? She asked slowly. Cynthia smiled. If you really want to marry him, yes. He's rich, handsome. You love him. Just do it. Once he believes you're carrying his child, he'll propose immediately. No man wants to lose his child or his image. Tricia stared into space, thinking. Her eyes blinked slowly. She remembered Richard telling her, "I'll settle down soon." But she also remembered how often he sat quietly, lost in thought. "Okay," Tricia said softly. "I'll do it. I'll tell him I'm pregnant." Meanwhile, at that same moment, little Vera was playing with her dolls at home. She looked at the gold necklace hanging on her chest and smiled. "I have a daddy," she whispered to herself. "NTH. His necklace proves it." The sun was shining softly as Tricia's black car entered the Hamilton mansion. The security man opened the gate with a big smile. Everyone knew who she was, Richard's woman. She stepped out of the car in a red gown, heels clicking gently on the marble floor. Her makeup was flawless, and her handbag was shining under the sun. As she walked to the entrance, the door opened before she could knock. Richard stood there, smiling brightly. "Tricia," he called out. She smiled sweetly. "Hello, sweetheart." He pulled her into a warm hug and kissed her cheek. "I missed you," he whispered. "I missed you too," she replied. Richard held her hand as they walked inside the large mansion. The place smelled fresh, like expensive flowers and polished floors. "Come, let me show you something," he said excitedly, like a boy. He took her to the lounge and played a soft song on the music speaker. They both started laughing and dancing slowly. Tricia looked around the house. "Everything looks so perfect here." "Not perfect until you're always here," Richard replied with a wink. Tricia giggled. They sat together on the couch, Richard's hand gently playing with her fingers. But after a while, he noticed Tricia was quiet. He looked at her carefully. "You look different today. Are you okay?" Tricia looked down, like she was nervous. Then, slowly, she said, "Richard, I have something to tell you." He leaned forward, concerned. "What is it? Are you all right?" Tricia took a deep breath and placed a hand on her stomach. "I'm pregnant." Silence. Richard's eyes widened. His mouth opened a little, but no sound came out. Then, like a wave of joy hit him, he stood up quickly and shouted, "You what?" Tricia stood slowly, pretending to be shy. "I'm going to have your baby, Richard." Richard was so happy. He lifted her off the ground and spun her gently. "Tricia. Oh my God. Are you serious? We're having a baby." She laughed. "Yes." He hugged her tight. "This is the best news I've ever heard." He kissed her forehead. His eyes filled with joy. "I can't believe this. I'm going to be a father." Then he paused, looked her in the eyes, and said, "Seriously, my dad and I will come and see your parents soon. We must do the right thing." Tricia smiled sweetly, though guilt sat quietly in her heart. "Yes, Richard. I'll be waiting." But deep inside, she knew there was no baby. Not yet. Meanwhile, far across town, little Vera skipped home with a drawing in her hand. She had drawn her daddy's necklace in school and colored it with crayons. "Mommy, Mommy, look what I drew," she called. Naomi came out of the small kitchen with a smile. "What is it, my love?" Vera raised the paper high. "My daddy's necklace." Naomi's eyes filled with tears again. She walked over, sat on the floor, and hugged Vera tightly. "Mommy, I love you," Vera said softly. Naomi smiled. "I love you too, my baby." And without knowing, on the other side of town, Richard was about to plan a wedding while his real daughter had just drawn a picture of his necklace in a small room with peeling walls. It was a hot afternoon. The air was dry, and everything felt heavy. In a small, quiet room, Naomi lay weak on her thin mattress. Sweat covered her face. Her head was pounding. Her body was burning. She could barely move. "Vera," she called out softly. The little girl came running from the kitchen. She still wore her precious daddy's necklace around her neck like a treasure. "Yes, Mommy?" she asked, her face full of worry. Naomi reached for her handbag and brought out some money with shaky hands. "Please run to the chemist down the street. Buy the drugs the doctor wrote for me. Show them this note. I'm feeling very weak." Vera took the money and the note, nodded quickly, and wiped her tears. "I will go now, Mommy. I promise to come back fast." Naomi smiled weakly. "Be careful, okay? And don't lose your necklace." "I won't, Mommy," Vera said. She turned and ran off onto the busy city road. A black SUV moved slowly along the same street. He was deep in thought. Trisha's pregnancy news was still ringing in his head. "I'm going to be a father," he whispered to himself. But something didn't feel right. His chest was tight. He couldn't explain why he felt that way. He stared out the window, lost in silence. Just then, something happened. A little girl ran across the sidewalk, crying and holding her necklace as she ran. People were staring, but no one stopped her. Richard's heart skipped. Something about the child, something about her tears, touched him deeply. "Stop the car," Richard said suddenly. The driver hit the brake quickly. "Sir, what? Stop the car now." Before the driver could ask anything else, Richard opened the door and jumped out. He ran after the little girl. "Baby! Hey, baby, stop," he called gently. The little girl, Vera, turned and looked back. Her cheeks were wet. Her slippers were dusty. Her little hand gripped the money tightly. Richard slowly bent down in front of her, breathing fast. "Why are you crying?" he asked. Vera wiped her eyes. "My mommy is sick. I'm going to buy medicine for her." Richard looked at her closely and froze. His eyes dropped to her chest. There it was, his necklace, his gold necklace, the one with his family name, R. Hamilton. Richard's eyes widened. He felt like the ground under his feet was shaking. He pointed to the necklace slowly, almost afraid to speak. Where did you get this necklace?" he asked, his voice trembling. Vera stepped back a little. "Don't touch it," she said quickly. "My mommy said I shouldn't let anyone touch my daddy's necklace." Richard stared at her, unable to speak for a moment. "Your daddy's necklace?" he whispered. "Yes," Vera nodded. "My mommy gave it to me. She said it's the only thing my daddy left." Richard's chest tightened. His hands were shaking. Who is your daddy?" he asked again. Vera looked confused. "I don't know. Mommy never told me, but she said this necklace is his." Richard blinked hard, his breath catching in his throat. This child, this little girl, was wearing his long-lost necklace. He couldn't believe it. "And your mommy?" he asked carefully. "What is her name?" "Naomi. My mommy is Naomi. She's sick right now. I'm going to buy medicine." "Where is your house?" Richard asked quickly. "Is it really close?" Vera nodded slowly, then pointed down the street. "It's over there." He stood up fast. "Come, Vera," he said gently. "Take me to your mommy." He turned to his driver, who had parked and stepped out of the car. "Go to the nearest pharmacy and buy everything on that list," he said, handing the driver the paper Vera was holding. The driver nodded and left immediately. Hand in hand, the billionaire followed the little girl, his own necklace swinging on her tiny neck, and a strange truth waiting just around the corner of his mother. Richard's heart was beating fast as he followed Vera down the narrow street. She held his hand tightly, still sniffing from her tears, her small feet tapping quickly on the rough road. The gold necklace bounced gently on her neck. His lost necklace, the one he hadn't seen in over 5 years. How did she get it? Who was this Naomi? Could it be? Too many thoughts filled his head, but he kept walking. The road was rough and dusty. Small houses lined the street. Dogs barked in the distance. Clothes hung from ropes outside poor homes. It was a part of town Richard had never visited in his entire life. He looked down at Vera again. Her soft, curly hair, her innocent eyes, her tiny voice, something in her touched a part of him he didn't even know was still alive. At Naomi's house, she lay weak on her thin mattress, barely able to keep her eyes open. She tried to sit up, but her body felt like it had no bones. "Where's Vera?" she whispered to herself. "Why hasn't she come back yet?" She tried to stand, but her legs gave out. She sat back down and covered her cheeks with her hands. Tears slid down her face again. She was tired, so tired of fighting alone. Outside, Vera stopped in front of a wooden door. "This is my house," she said. Richard looked around. The place was small, old, and broken. He was quiet. Vera opened the door and ran inside. "Mommy, Mommy, I'm back. I brought someone." Richard stepped in slowly behind her. As his eyes adjusted to the dim room, he saw Naomi. She was lying on a floor mat, sweating and pale, her hand pressed to her head. She slowly turned her head, and her eyes met Richard's, but he didn't recognize her. Not yet. He walked forward slowly. "Hello, are you Naomi?" Naomi nodded weakly. "Yes, who are you?" "I saw your daughter crying on the road," Richard said softly. "I couldn't leave her. She said you were sick." Naomi turned to Vera. "You followed someone, Vera?" "No, Mommy," Vera said. "He helped me. He's nice. He told his driver to buy your medicine." Naomi tried to speak but coughed instead. Richard quickly rushed to her and helped her sit up. "Don't talk, just rest. My driver is coming with the medicine." Naomi looked at him strangely. His face felt familiar, but her head was spinning. Richard gently placed a pillow behind her back and passed her a cup of water. "You'll be fine, okay," he said softly. Naomi nodded, still confused about who he was. A few minutes later, the driver returned with a small black bag filled with medicine. Richard collected it and gave the drugs to Naomi, helping her take them with water. Vera sat by her mother's side, hugging her tightly. Naomi was weak but thankful. Naomi was feeling a bit better now. The medicine Richard brought had started working. She sat up with Vera resting gently beside her. Naomi looked at Richard and said softly, "Thank you, sir. Thank you for helping me and my daughter. You didn't have to, but you did." Richard gave a small smile, then cleared his throat. Something had been on his mind since he walked into that room. "Please don't be offended," he said carefully, his voice low, "but can I ask you something personal?" Naomi blinked, surprised. "Yes, sir." He looked at Vera again, then pointed gently. "The necklace, the one your daughter is wearing, where did you get it from?" "She told me it's her daddy's necklace. She didn't even let me touch it." Naomi looked at her daughter, then at the necklace. "Yes, it belonged to her father," she said slowly. Richard's heart pounded. Can you tell me how you got it?" Naomi took a deep breath. Her hands were shaking as she placed them on her lap. "It all started about 5 years ago," she began, her voice shaky but clear. "I had just gotten a new job. My best friend, Glory, was so happy for me. She said we should go to the club and celebrate. I didn't want to go, but she convinced me." Naomi paused and looked down at her fingers. "That night, I was feeling dizzy. I had a headache, and someone gave me something to drink. I don't even know what it was, but it made me feel worse. So, I went upstairs in the hotel, entered a room, and just fell asleep on the bed." Tears slowly filled her eyes as she remembered. When I woke up the next morning, the man was gone. I didn't see his face. I didn't know who he was. But I saw that necklace, this necklace, lying on the bed beside me. She looked up at Richard, pain in her eyes. I kept it because I didn't know anything else. A month later, I found out I was pregnant. Naomi's voice broke. So why are you asking about the necklace? Do you know it? Richard was silent for a long moment. His eyes were fixed on the necklace. His face looked like he had seen a ghost. Then, in a soft voice, he replied, "That necklace is mine." Naomi gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. What? I'm so sorry, Richard continued. I never knew. I didn't even remember that night until now. Naomi's eyes widened. You were the man. You, Veras, Richard nodded slowly, his heart heavy. Yes, I lost that necklace 5 years ago. I went to Vortex Club. I was going through a lot. Someone I trusted betrayed me. I was depressed. I drank too much, and my men took me to a hotel room to rest. He looked Naomi in the eyes. When I got to the room, I saw you lying there. I thought you were someone they brought to comfort me. I was already drunk and out of my mind. Tears rolled down Naomi's face. Oh my God. I'm so sorry, Naomi, Richard whispered. I didn't know. I had no idea. I never imagined that night would result in a child. Vera looked confused but held on to Naomi tightly. Naomi covered her mouth, shaking with emotion. So all these years, I raised her alone. I didn't even know who her father was. Richard knelt beside her, his voice full of regret. I can't change the past, but I can make it right now. He looked into Vera's eyes. I'm your daddy, he said gently. Vera tilted her head, looking at him closely, her eyes wide. Naomi cried harder. I'm so sorry for everything, Richard said again. For leaving you alone to raise her, for not being there. I want to fix it. Please come with me. Naomi looked up, shocked. What? Come with me, Richard said, holding her hand. You and Vera, let me take care of you both. Come to my home. Let me be a father to her. Naomi couldn't speak. She looked at her daughter, at the necklace, at the man before her. Everything was happening too fast. But somehow, her heart believed him. Later that evening, the black SUV pulled up in front of the Hamilton mansion. The security guard's jaw dropped when he saw Richard stepping out, holding a little girl in one hand and supporting a woman with the other. Naomi looked around, shocked by the size of the mansion. Vera gasped, Wow, Mommy, is this a palace? Richard smiled gently. This is your home now. Inside the Hamilton mansion, the atmosphere changed. Naomi stood in the large kitchen with wide eyes. The shining marble floors, the fancy silver fridge, the glass cabinets, it was like a dream. Vera was laughing as she explored the house, running up and down the soft rug in the living room. Richard stood at the staircase, smiling as he watched them. For the first time in a long time, he felt peace in his heart. He walked over to Naomi. I have to go to work now, he said softly. Naomi turned. All right, sir. Thank you again for everything. Richard smiled. Please, no, sir, anymore. Just call me Richard. And if you're hungry, feel free to eat. Everything is in the kitchen. Make yourself at home. Then he bent down and picked up Vera, spinning her gently in his arms. My princess, he said with a big grin. Daddy is going to work now. Be a good girl, okay? Vera nodded and hugged his neck tightly. Bye-bye, Daddy. Richard kissed her forehead and placed her back down. He grabbed his car keys and walked out of the mansion with a smile on his face. 3 hours later, a loud car horn echoed from outside. A black car pulled up in front of the Hamilton mansion. The gate opened, and a woman stepped out in heels, Tricia. She looked stunning as always, dressed in a classy outfit and carrying a designer bag. But her smile faded the moment she stepped into the house and saw Naomi standing by the dining table and Vera playing with a doll nearby. Tricia's eyes narrowed sharply. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice rising. "What are you doing here?" Naomi turned, startled. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Mr. Richard invited me. He brought me and my daughter here yesterday." Tricia slowly walked closer, her eyes scanning Naomi from head to toe. She frowned in disgust. "Please leave this place now. You don't belong here." Naomi's eyes widened. "Please, ma'am, don't send us out." "Mr. Richard, I said leave." Tricia snapped. Naomi held Vera tightly and backed away. But Tricia was furious. She walked forward and pushed Naomi toward the door. "Get out of this house," she shouted. Naomi stumbled, still holding Vera. But in the middle of the struggle, Vera slipped from her arms and fell. She hit her face on the sharp edge of the gate and cried out loudly in pain. "Mommy, my face," she screamed. Naomi bent quickly, lifting her bleeding daughter. "Please, look what you've done," she cried. Tricia crossed her arms. "That's what happens when you trespass where you don't belong." She walked back inside, slamming the door. Naomi and Vera sat by the gate outside the mansion for hours. The sun was hot, and they hadn't eaten anything. Naomi tore a piece of cloth to press on Vera's wounded cheek. The little girl whimpered softly in her arms. Evening came. Richard's car drove in. As he reached the gate, he spotted Naomi and Vera sitting on the ground outside. His heart raced. He jumped out of the car and rushed to them. "What happened?" He knelt before Vera, saw the wound on her face, and looked up at Naomi. Naomi's voice was shaking. "Your madam, she threw us out, sir," she said. "She said we shouldn't be in your house. She pushed me, and Vera fell and got hurt." Richard's face turned dark with anger. "Get inside," he said quickly. "Both of you, come inside now." He opened the gate wide and helped them in. As they stepped inside, he saw Tricia sitting in the living room, watching a movie, sipping a drink like nothing had happened. Richard's anger exploded. He walked straight to her and dragged her up from the couch. "To the room now." Tricia looked confused. "What? What's going on?" He didn't answer. He marched her to his room and shut the door behind them. Inside Richard's bedroom, he shouted, "What is wrong with you, Tricia? You saw someone in my house, and instead of calling me, you threw her out. You pushed her. You made a little girl fall and get injured." Tricia folded her arms. "Who is she? Why is she here? You brought her into your house without telling me." "That little girl is my daughter," Richard shouted. Tricia's mouth dropped open. "What?" "Yes, my blood. My own child. I just found out days ago, and you starved her, pushed her, and hurt her." Tricia's eyes were wide. "But I'm pregnant for you." "So?" Richard shouted. "So because you're pregnant, I should throw away my own daughter, the child I abandoned for 5 years without knowing?" He stepped back and pointed toward the door. "Let this never happen again, Tricia. Don't ever touch them. Don't ever go near Vera again, or I swear this house will no longer be your home." Tricia stood frozen, and for the first time, she realized something terrifying. Richard was beginning to care deeply for Naomi and Vera, and she was slowly losing her place in his heart. Richard sat on the balcony of his mansion, watching the sunset. Vera was in the garden, picking flowers and laughing loudly. Naomi sat nearby, folding laundry. The cool evening breeze touched her face, and her soft smile made Richard's heart beat slow and peaceful for the first time in years. He felt complete, not because of wealth, not because of business, but because of Naomi and Vera. Every time Vera called him Daddy with that tiny, sweet voice, it made something deep in his heart come alive. And Naomi, her calmness, her gentle way, the way she always thanked him for even the smallest things, it touched him. He started looking forward to coming home. He started smiling more, laughing more, sleeping better. Richard was falling in love. Later that night, Tricia stood by the window, holding a glass of wine. She had been watching him, watching Naomi, watching the way Vera ran into Richard's arms every evening, the way he looked at Naomi when she wasn't paying attention. She saw the change, and she hated it. She stepped aside and picked up her phone. She dialed quickly. "Hello, Cynthia." Cynthia's voice came through loud and clear. "Babes, what's going on? Has he proposed?" Tricia's face twisted in frustration. "No, that's the problem. That thing you told me to do, the fake pregnancy, it's not working." Cynthia laughed. "What do you mean? Is he not treating you nice?" Tricia hissed. "He was at first, but now he's always with that girl and her child. He's treating them like family. He's slowly forgetting me. This whole thing is backfiring." Cynthia was quiet. "Wait, are you saying the girl and the child live with him?" "Yes," Tricia whispered angrily. "And now he barely even looks at me. I thought the pregnancy lie would make him settle quickly, but now I think he's in love with her." Cynthia sighed. This is serious." Unbeknownst to Tricia, Richard had just walked past her room. The door was slightly open. He heard everything. His steps froze. His heart dropped. He stood still, shocked, disappointed, and angry. Fake pregnancy lie. He couldn't believe what he just heard. He stepped back quietly, his fists clenched. The next morning, Richard didn't join Tricia at the breakfast table. He stayed with Naomi and Vera in the kitchen instead. They laughed as Naomi made pancakes and Vera poured orange juice into tiny cups. Tricia watched them from the hallway, her chest burning. Then Richard walked up to her, his face cold and unreadable. "We need to talk," he said flatly. Tricia followed him silently into his private study. He closed the door and turned to her, arms folded. "So, you lied to me." Tricia blinked. "What?" "I heard your conversation with Cynthia last night. Don't even try to deny it." Her lips parted in shock. "Richard, You lied to me about being pregnant. You faked it. You played with my emotions. For what? To trap me? Richard, please. I didn't want to lose you." "So your plan was to lie and force me to marry you," he said bitterly. "Do you know what I've been through? Do you know how much pain I've carried?" His voice cracked. "I just found out I have a daughter, a beautiful, innocent girl I never knew about. And instead of supporting me, you chose to lie and hurt people." Tricia's eyes filled with tears. "I love you." Richard shook his head slowly. "No, you love control. You don't love me, because if you did, you wouldn't have done this." He opened the door. "Please leave this room." Tricia stood still, broken. Richard walked out and closed the door behind him. He walked straight to Naomi and Vera, and as Vera ran into his arms, shouting, "Daddy," he knew where his heart truly belonged. Tricia stood quietly in the hallway, tears in her eyes. Her hands were shaking. She had lost the one man she thought she could keep through lies. Richard stepped into the living room with calm confidence. Naomi and Vera were sitting together on the couch, reading a storybook. Vera saw him first. "Daddy," she shouted, jumping into his arms. Richard smiled and lifted her high into the air, spinning her gently. He kissed her cheek and held her close. Naomi smiled softly. She was still adjusting to everything, but she couldn't deny how warm her heart felt around him. He sat Vera down, then turned to Naomi. "Naomi," he said gently, "please come with me. I want to take you and Vera to meet someone special." Naomi looked surprised. "Who?" "You'll see," he smiled. Later that afternoon, a black SUV pulled into the large compound of Chief Hamilton, Richard's father. The elderly man stepped out onto the balcony. He was dressed in a fine native outfit and looked strong, wise, and proud. He looked at the car and smiled. "Richard is here." But when he saw Naomi and little Vera stepping out beside him, his smile faded in confusion. Richard walked up to him with Vera holding his hand. "Dad, I want you to meet someone." Chief Hamilton raised an eyebrow. "Go on." Richard knelt before his father, gently bringing Vera forward. "This is my daughter," he said. "Her name is Vera." The old man blinked. "You're what?" "My daughter," Richard repeated proudly. "I didn't know until recently. I found her through this." He brought out the family necklace that Vera was wearing. "I lost this necklace some years ago, not knowing I was also giving away a piece of my life. This necklace found its way back to me around my daughter's neck." Chief Hamilton was speechless. Then he turned to Naomi. "And who is this lady?" Richard stood up and held Naomi's hand firmly. "She's the mother of my child. But more than that, she's the one who brought light into my life again." He looked her in the eyes. "All the years I spent with Tricia, I felt empty, like something was missing. That's why I never proposed. I couldn't explain it. But the moment I met Vera and Naomi, I felt complete. I felt peace." He turned back to his father. "My heart belongs to them now." Chief Hamilton looked long and hard at Naomi, then at Vera, who was now smiling shyly. Finally, he smiled. "Welcome, my daughter," he said to Naomi. "And welcome, my granddaughter." Vera ran into his arms. "Grandpa." Back at the mansion, Tricia had already packed her things and left quietly. She didn't argue. She didn't fight. She knew she had lost not just Richard but herself. Weeks later, the Hamilton mansion was filled with laughter again. Vera had started school in a top academy. Naomi was managing a foundation Richard opened in her name to help single mothers. They weren't married yet, but their bond was stronger than any ring. One evening, Richard walked into the garden with Vera on his shoulders. Naomi was sitting on a bench, reading. He sat beside her, kissed her cheek, and whispered, "Thank you for coming into my life." Naomi looked at him, tears in her eyes. "Thank you for finding us." And as the sun slowly set behind the house, Richard looked at his little girl and said, "You were wearing my necklace the day we met, but you brought more than that. You brought me home." Moral of the story: love cannot be forced. Real love is not built on lies or tricks. It grows through truth, kindness, and peace. Sometimes, the things we are searching for are already around us, waiting to be found in the most unexpected places. The end. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please share your thoughts in the comments section and tell us where you're watching from. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you'll know when we upload our next story.